Welcome to the Dragon's Library, your source for games, movies, shows, and more. Things need not have happened to be true. Tales and adventures are the shadow truths that will endure when mere facts are dust and ashes and forgotten. Dream of the Endless, the Sandman. I have always enjoyed stories because they help me feel something more than my usual apathy. It's like a sugar high, a quick jolt of joy, excitement, passion, or sadness. But within a short time, it always fades. However, once in a while, you run into a story that just won't let go at the end. Words and sights that haunt your mind and fill you with things that you can't hope to understand fully. Hello everybody, and welcome back to the Dragon's Library. Sorry about the strange intro, but Sandman is one of the stories I just described. Now, I had heard about the Sandman comic for a few years. I was already familiar with the author Neil Gaiman for his work with American gods and Norse mythology, but I had never found a good time to read the Sandman comics themselves. However, when I heard the Netflix adaptation was coming out, it seemed like a good time to read the first 20 issues before I watched the show. And I have no regrets on that front. Neil Gaiman, as a writer, has always been amazing with the examinations of belief and the nature of storytelling. As someone who has been trying to better understand storytelling, it has been amazing to read his work. So does Netflix adaptation of Sandman live up to the source material? Absolutely, it lives up to it. So with that out of the way, let's get to the review proper with some context. The Sandman comics follow the adventures of Dream, one of 7 beings from DC Comics known as the Endless. The Endless are 7 living concepts that exist essentially by necessity. If you want to know more about them, there is an excellent video by the Imaginary Axis that is a wonderful watch. But to summarize things, Dream is not a god of dreams, but instead it's the sentient embodiment of the very concept of dreams. The Endless exist by necessity, even to the exclusion of their own choices, at least to an extent, but more on that later. For now, let's move on to the premise. The Sandman follows Dream of the Endless in 1916, when he is captured by a cult who had performed a ritual in order to bind his sister Death. The humans steal his tools and keep Dream in prison for over a century, wreaking untold havoc on the dreaming realm and their own world. After freeing himself, Dream sets off to repair the damage, recover his tools, and restore order to his realm. So yeah, right off the bat, we are diving headfirst into Gaiman's metaphysical examination on the nature of dreams. As Dream searches for his tools, a pouch of sand, a helm, and a ruby, he must come to terms with his imprisonment and adapt to the changes it wrought not just on the world, but upon himself. This is a fantastic adaptation of a beloved comic, whose changes are made with thought and care. Many of the comic's early characters felt bound to DC and its continuity, especially the first main villain, Dr. Destiny, who came off as less of a fleshed out character, but by reworking him, he comes off across as more human, which is good for his character and excellent in practice. There are also minor changes, like replacing John Constantine with a gender swap version, that seem to be a result of rights issues with Netflix and DC. But it's not really a problem. They also move things around, most obviously by having the Corinthian leap before Dream is captured in order to reduce the character earlier. This works better for the show's need to set up all the characters in the beginning for a long-range show as opposed to a comic. Speaking of that, for our main character we have Tom Sturridge as Dream, and he knocks it out of the park. Tom manages to portray Dream's distant, inhuman nature while still showing a clear care for those he protects and rules. Fantastic job by the character for an actor who could easily have come across as bored or bland. Next we have Boyd Holbrook as the Corinthian, a nightmare who fled the dreaming and began murdering humans in the waking world. Boyd manages to breathe menace and terror into this ever-worldly, eye-stealing nightmare. And he's just generally a fun thing to have with this cocky southern accent. Next, we have Dream's aides, Lucian, portrayed by Vivian, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, Akiampong, I apologize profusely for that pronunciation, and Matthew the Raven, voiced by Patton Oswalt. Both actors do an excellent job, with Vivian breathing life into the guide, into the fantastic. Dream's librarian is a fascinating character in her own right, since she took up the mantle of Dream while he was imprisoned, or at least as the, organizer of the realm and his second in command. Meanwhile, Patton as Matthew, a raven who used to be a human, is used as a straight man who can answer the questions necessary for the audience to understand the story in place of narration. Both have a great back and forth with Dream and are a delight on screen. Even among the side characters, every actor seems to bring their A-game, such as Gwendolyn Christie as Lucifer Morningstar, and especially Kirby Hallwell-Baptiste as Death, who is one of the best characters in the show, personally. However, for all the praise I gave Tom, Kirby utterly nails death. Her speech about the locking the universe behind her gives me goosebumps every time I hear it now. And I just cannot give her enough praise. As for the technical aspects, once again, the story is fantastic. Dreams twist and turn with a wonderful variety of location effects in the dream realm. While not fully film quality, they're still good for a streaming service, but to be honest, the directing steals the show as the camera twists and turns with the shifting dream, or in reality to show the unsettled nature of certain human characters. This show had 6 directors, with 3 of them only working on 1 episode. Jamie Childs had the most at 4 episodes, my personal favorite being episode 4 with the duel of ideas between Lucifer and Dream. With all that said and done, Sandman is a miraculous adaptation of a beloved comic. I can only hope that Netflix continues this series so we can follow along the rest of Dream's journey. If you haven't read or watched The Sandman yet, then you need to do that right now. Preferably read a bit of it first and then watch it because you'll get greater appreciation for it, but just end up watching this show somehow, seriously. 10 out of 10, this is probably going to be my show of the year. Seriously, Netflix, do not cancel this. Okay, with that out of the way, we're going to be moving on. However, and this is where I'm actually re-recording this because this is currently on Sunday evening, August 15th, for those of you who don't know, is when I record this stuff. It goes up on YouTube a week later. And this is coming out late because just a lot of things. I was going to release it Thursday night, but then I just was really tired and I didn't have time to go over it all. So I went ahead and said, oh, you know what? I'll finish this on Friday. I can still release it the same day. It'll just be a few hours late. And then when I was going to work on it before I left to do some other stuff, the power went out and I was so exhausted when I got back home, but I had other stuff to do. So I dived into that, stayed up till like 7, crashed that day after working all day. And by the time I was ready to do this stuff, our internet had crapped out again earlier this Sunday, so I'm currently doing this Sunday night. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get this up, but hopefully I will be able to get this uploaded. Right now the internet is just so unstable and it's not going to be able to get somebody out here to fix it until Tuesday. So if you're wondering why my uploads have been a little erratic this week, or this weekend, and might be erratic through the beginning of next week, that's why, and I deeply apologize. I posted something on Twitter, so if you follow me there, or you just check my tweets, and please follow me. I'd like it, but thank you for putting up with this. I'm so sorry. So yeah, with that interruption out of the way, let's get back to this. And to old me. Okay, so where to start on this? Gods. We have Dream of the Endless. Gods, I'm really annoyed I hadn't read Sandman earlier because I only got to read like the first 20 or so chapters, and they were just so good and fun, and I was worried that this show wouldn't be able to capture that, but oh my god, it's so good. I'm genuinely shocked they managed to get this faithful of an adaptation. And it keeps the core ideas of what made the story great. The analysis of the way that dreams shape our world and how dreams should shape things. For example, one of the big things that happens at first is that, so in the first major storyline, you had the Corinthian running away. And that doesn't get resolved to the second one, which I believe is Dollhouse, I want to say. It's the Dollhouse one. Essentially, Dream runs into this human who's a nexus for dreams, and her powers will eventually start ripping the dream apart. He's had to kill them on occasion. When he didn't before, it ended up destroying an entire universe. So he has to do this. He doesn't like it, but it's a necessity. There's a lot of sub-stuff with, the reason why she's appearing now, how his imprisonment affected it, and the Corinthian is running around and ends up kidnapping her little brother, and they end up running away to this, essentially, murder convention. Essentially, and it's actually really funny the way they do it in both the comics and this. It's this convention of what they call, these people who call themselves collectors, who are big fans of the Corinthian as many years that he's been in this place. They think the Corinthian is essentially like a title that gets passed down to a group of, serial killers. They're all serial killers. And it's really funny, too. So what they'll do, they basically have this, underground network of communications for all the serial killers, that get noticed really well. And they have this serial convention, as in cereal with a C, every few years, and the new, essentially, guest speaker couldn't make it for various reasons. I think he might be either dead or kidnapped caught by the police or something, so he couldn't make it. And so they try and get the Corinthians' attention by mimicking his crimes. And he's really impressed, like, you were all inspired by me? Well, I mean, I can't. Well, we were inspired by your predecessor. He's like, oh, of course. My predecessor. Because, he's a dream. He doesn't age. He's immortal. He's been the Corinthian for a century now. They just think it's been like 3 generations or 4 generations of Corinthians going around killing people, ripping out only their eyes. So he agrees to do a test. Meanwhile, he's kidnapped the brother of the girl who's the Vortex, the Dream Vortex, and he essentially wants to use her to usurp Dream and build a new Dreaming. Screw the universe. I don't really give a shit about this place, apparently. And Dream ends up punishing him by destroying him because he's like, what are you going to do, just send me back? And it's like, no, I did something completely wrong. We were never meant to feed on those. You are a dream. You are a nightmare. You are meant to terrify in the dreaming so that people may better themselves in the waking. You are not meant to be here simply to kill people. That's not your jurisdiction. That's not what dreams do. Dreams do not kill mortals. And so he unmakes him. And then Dream essentially turns to the people that are the result of his creation. Because he feels a lot of shame. Because for a long time, the Corinthian was essentially his prodigal nightmare, one of the greatest nightmares he ever created. And he feels shame at how his nightmare, who was loosed into the world, who he was unable to stop before he was imprisoned, has essentially been let loose by his negligence to influence other humans to inflict violence upon the rest of their kind. So he feels personally responsible. So what he does is something remarkably cruel. See, throughout this time, you get this intense feeling that, and it's born of the Corinthian feeling like he was a victim of Dream, and all the killers he inspires see themselves as the victims of their own stories. But that victimhood is a fantasy. They're murderers. They kill innocent people who had nothing to do with their lives or any problems in their lives that caused this. They're just, they're these monsters who have essentially deluded themselves into thinking they're victims rebelling against the system. And so Dream does something really clever. See, he still doesn't kill mortals because, they're mortals, they're a law, they're rules, and he is the king of dreamings. However, he's the king of dreams. So he's gonna take this dream away from them, this fantasy they've crafted. He robs them of the ability to see themselves as the victims when it comes to their past actions. He essentially strips the fantasy from their murders. Like the fantasy where there's some kind of revolutionary or great mind or victim. And they all just walk out of the theater and start sobbing in their cars. And a few of them just, quite frankly, pull out a gun and off themselves. Because he stripped out all of the fantasy that they had about their past actions and left only the pain and suffering they had inflicted upon others. And unable to deal with that, they break. Which is really telling. He didn't kill any of them. He just made life so horrible by their own actions that they didn't want to die. And it's little things like that. Little things like how dreams can influence your actions, by your own fantasies can influence the way you view the world. I'm not even going to there's a huge political issue I could touch there. I'm not going to, because I try and keep the insanity of the rest of the world out of my personal little bubble of just everything. I will just say it rhymes with dump, and I'm not going to mention it anymore. But it is, oh gods, it is just wonderful at this moment. It's just so intense. And you have the Vortex and her brother in the car just waiting, and she's like, just drive. We're just driving. We're going. Don't look. Because there are just people offing themselves in their car. They're that broken up. And you get the feeling they've killed some of them have killed dozens of people. And it's yeah, when you strip away the, fantasy of being a master huntsman or a revolutionary surgeon pushing things past the limits of normal science, you just get some really horrific torture scenes. And yeah, that's what they were. Horrific monsters. And there are other things like this too. You had I mentioned the metaphorical battle between Lucifer and Dream. And essentially it's a demon duel. There's this demon who got Dream's helm as a deal with the human who stole his stuff from the cult. She wanted an amulet of protection to protect her from age and from the things that would eventually come hunting for her after her betrayal of both the cult and her theft of Dream's items. So she ended up losing the sailing the sand, and then she ended up trading the helm in a deal with the demon. Now, the demon doesn't want to give it back, even though Dream has come to hell to retrieve it from him, and Lucifer helped him find the demon. So he challenges Dream by the laws of the realm. And Dream is like, I will represent myself. And he's like, okay, well, I get to pick my representative. And I choose you, my lord. I choose Lucifer Morningstar. And actually, that didn't happen in the original, but I kind of like it. See, in the original, there was apparently some other stuff going on in the comics. And by the time Dream got down to hell, Lucifer had like a civil war or whatever, and there were two other demons like co-ruling with him. We actually see one of them in the post-credits, although they're not co-ruling, Azazel. But in this universe, Lucifer still is the undisputed champion of hell. And for those of you who aren't caught up with DC's continuity, because it's complicated, Lucifer is widely considered, until he leaves the universe, it's really complicated. He left the universe to create his own because he hated predestination. The second most powerful being in the universe after essentially what is essentially God. It's called a lot of names, but it's essentially DC's God. It has a bunch of angels serving it and all that. So Lucifer is like second dog, and he's banished infinite distance from heaven. And he's the second most powerful. He has this whole comic that I think Neil Gaiman also worked on, that it's all about him trying to escape predestination. I mean, if your dad is, God and does all, knows everything, is omnipotent, all-knowing, omniscient, it kind of throws free will into question. So he had this whole arc about escaping the universe to build his own reality to prove that he could escape predestination, which was interesting. I haven't read the whole thing. I watched the spin-off crime drama built around that, where he tried to leave, stop ruling over hell. We also get to see Mazikeen from that series. Not the same Mazikeen, not the same Lucifer. They're different incarnations of those characters, clearly, but it was funny seeing Mazikeen again. It made me realize, wait, the Lucifer was based on I knew the Lucifer was, loosely based on Lucifer from DC. I didn't realize it was actually based on, they brought in other characters. So Mazikeen's oh, that's cool. It's nice seeing Mazikeen again. I mean, it's a different version of her, but, I can still relate, And the duel between Lucifer and Dream was gorgeous. I love the way. See, in the comics, the duel between him and the demon was essentially a metaphor duel. Each one of them would declare themselves something, and then the other would declare themselves something to beat that. And they have to keep one-upping each other. So, he becomes, the demon becomes a wolf, and then the demon, or Lucifer in this case, becomes a wolf. Dream becomes a huntsman. The demon becomes a poisonous snake. Dream becomes a hawk. And basically, Dream is trying to become something nurturing or whole, and Lucifer has to destroy. So it moves on from hawk to bacteria. Lucifer's now a bacteria devouring all flesh. Dream becomes an entire planet capable of sustaining life. Lucifer becomes a supernova. Dream becomes the universe. And Lucifer twists and becomes anti-life. Now, if you don't know DC Comics, and this is a weird one associated with Darkseid, but anti-life is essentially a mathematical formula that proves all of life is pointless and subjugated under a cosmic god known as Darkseid. It essentially strips free will and life from the universe and replaces it with its opposite, anti-life. Whereas life is an expression of freedom or living, where you have choice, anti-life strips away all choice, and so that life and existence becomes meaningless. And essentially, Lucifer watches Dream writhing on the floor because they experience the after effects of whatever they become. And it's just what could you possibly be that is more than the utter lack of all? And it's I am hope of dreams that there will be more. Because he's Dream, He is the idea that things can be better, a hope that things can be better. And it's just this wonderful moment of playing into the nature of the characters. Because, of course, Lucifer would see the unbeatable force as anti-life. Because, he was struck down, he was betrayed. And he also sees anti-life as something almost that he's trying to find. He sees as unbeatable, which is, predestination. And it's a fascinating look into a character that we get so little time with that I just loved. Fantastic job of that whole duel. It's this big visual spectrum too, where they switch between the two, and it's just so wonderful watching them writhe on the floor or whatever when they're getting hit by different things. And it's such I was really worried when they declared Lucifer was going to be the boss, that they were going to not do the riddle fight, where it was back and forth like that. because it was one of the most interesting, like, fights I've ever seen. Like, you don't see people fight like that in comics, you know, it's always a fist fight. This really played into its strength of, like, visualizing and different wordplay, and I just loved it. It's one of the best and coolest scenes in the Sandman that I've read so far. And again, it just makes this comic stand out so much. It makes it so interesting they adapted. You get to see the individual things like the huntsman spearing the wolf, the serpent biting him, the hawk catching it, the bacterium breaking it down, the world, the supernova, universe, anti-life, hope. And it's just this beautiful collage of visuals. If I can get a hold of the footage, I might put it in the video version. But it's just, perfection. Love it. Directors did a great job. And Lucifer obviously had to let him go, but after the duel and Dream of Crimson Helmet, he's like, thank you, I shall remember in the future that the lords of hell are quite honorable. It's like, honorable? Lucifer, Dream, you walked into my realm and allowed me to summon all the lords of hell. Why do you think I'd let you leave here alive? And Dream just is like, you would do well not to challenge me, Lucifer. And he's like, what use does hell have for dreams? It's like, everything. For what is hell's power? What force do you hold over mortals if they cannot dream of heaven, of a better life? What meaning is there in your torment of them? What power do you hold over them if they cannot dream of anything better? And it's just in this moment of Lucifer suddenly realizing, oh shit, I get my power from tortured souls. And you could actually make it so they're not that tortured anymore. Fuck. So he backs down. It's just this moment of, do not challenge me again, Lucifer, or you will see the power of dreams. And Lucifer is just like glaring. Like, you really get the fact that if Lucifer thought he could get away with it, he would have murdered Dream so hard. And Dream freely admits Lucifer is more powerful than him. Lucifer is the second most powerful being in creation at the moment, as of this story. So, it is genuinely fascinating. I love it. The whole fight is just great. The whole setup. It's one of those really cool scenes that I was worried they were going to screw up. Like, you know, obviously, if a worse studio had gotten a hold of this, if a worse director had gotten a hold of the story, you just know that they would have turned this into a atypical, like, shapeshifter duel or something like that. Not the wordplay back and forth. It would have just been, like, some weird, like, one or two references to them turning into serpents or wolves, and then just the rest of it's just, oh, we gotta end it with a fist fight. And it's just like, no, this isn't about that. This isn't that kind of comic. This is a metaphysical examination on the nature of dreams and reality and hope. And it's really interesting, so don't screw it up. And I was just so happy when they didn't screw it up. I was so happy about it. Like, I'm not a religious person at all. I'm an atheist, personally. I don't really talk about that much, but, like, I love analyzations about this, and Lucifer is a well-written character, which I like. I like complex nuance. It's good. So good. There's so much to talk about here. There really is. I could go on and on. But I want to keep this short because I'm not sure. I don't want it to get too long. And there's one other big thing I want to talk about. And that is the combination between Dream and his sister Death. And holy shit. Like, I know that you're supposed to love, like, action or the amazing spectacle or maybe Dream's battle against Dr. Destiny or, yeah, they're all technically impressive. They're all wonderfully written. Yes. But for me, the best written scene so far that's adapted is the conversation between Death and Dream. The actor for Dream and Death are just doing a great job. Dream comes across as very withdrawn, and Death is just living. Like, she's so alive for the personification of Death. And even in the original comics, that always struck me as an interesting choice that really added to her character. And this conversation explores that nature of why Death would be so happy to be alive. And it's just such a compelling answer. See, essentially, Death goes over how, Dream is talking about how he just doesn't feel fulfilled. Like, he got his revenge. This is after he's beaten Dr. Destiny and retrieved his tools. He still has to repair his realm, and that's most of the first season, but he's, done what he set out to do. He escaped his prison, got revenge on the humans, reclaimed his tools, went into hell itself, defeated the last man who took his ruby. He did what he set out to do, but he doesn't feel fulfilled. All he could think about at first was vengeance, and he just doesn't. He thought he'd feel more afterwards, And that's a surprisingly human reaction from the nature of dreams. And when he's talking to Death about it, she's just like, she's just like, I would have helped. Why didn't you ask me? And there's a really interesting thing here, because midway through this conversation, she reveals that it's like, they were trying to summon you, and she's just like, I know. And it's like, oh, wait, the dad died in Dream's cell. Death saw it. It's very clear, though, that the Endless have rules about, not doing stuff. They have this whole thing of, I will summon you if I want you. And it's this very clear thing of, Death was waiting for him to ask her for help. That's all she wanted, was for her brother to ask her for help, and he wouldn't. And when she asked him, why didn't you call for me? He says, I didn't want to worry you. And you suddenly realize, midway through this conversation, when you realize that she knows they were trying to summon her and not him, it's like, she was already worried sick, you asshole. And so she rips the bread he was using to feed the birds, and she's like, did a Mary Poppins quote of like, you'll just get fat birds out of that, which is very just hilarious. My dad found that personally very hilarious when I showed him the show. And there's this moment of just like, you are the most selfish, irresponsible, you're worse than Desire. And Desire is a massive asshole, by the way. We meet him a few times. He's a self-centered asshole. Whereas Dream's realm is like the, this massive place full of all these different dreams. And you have Death is where all the souls of the dead go. She guides them all there. Dream's realm is just a giant statue. Desire's realm is just a giant statue of Desire with this crystalline heart where Desire lives, in his own heart. Like, he's a self-centered asshole, okay? So this is a pretty big insult. And she's just like, Dream, you were more active than you have ever been in years, and you're more powerful now, and you're just, like, upset that your game's over, and you don't have the balls to go find something new to occupy your time. You're just moping. It's like, go rebuild your realm. Go restructure, make more dreams. Do something interesting. Make some deals with mortals. How do you go check on that other immortal the guy you had me make immortal, because you wanted to see if a human would give up being immortal would give up on life if given enough time. Like, the Death and him made a deal a while ago where, they heard immortals that, Death was taking Dream because she's been trying to get him to socialize and go out and meet humans for a while, centuries at this point. And she essentially took him to this tavern. It's like, yeah, we can just try it out. Come on. It's like, I guess I will. And he overhears this human saying Death's a mug's game. Everyone just dies because they have to. I'm going to live forever. And Dream's just like, what mortal would want to live forever? Seems rather dull for their kind. It's like, you never know. It's like, no one would do that. He'd be caving after 100 years. Max. It's like, okay, Dream, how about we make a deal then? Deal? It's like, yeah. I will decide to exempt him from my domain. He can get to live forever. I've done this once or twice throughout history. And you have to meet with him every 100 years and ask what he's been up to. It's like, and if he decides he doesn't want to live, then I'll take him. But only if he admits to you at one of your 100-year meetings that he is no longer willing to experience life. It's like, deal. And so, goes over, introduces himself, I'll see you in 100 years, and the guy just laughs it off like, yeah, I'll see you there too, buddy. It's like, it's clear even he doesn't believe he's gonna live forever, he's just kind of posturing. All humans are a little scared of death. There's a line about that actually later in this conversation I'll get to, but, and he meets Dream there, he's just like, who are you? She's like, let's just say I'm someone who wants to see what'll happen. And, he's always like, oh, you devil. So, no, I'm not any devil. I'm not a demon. It's okay. You haven't sold your soul. It's fine. We just made you immortal. And over the years, you see him go through these up and down. Like, he starts out, a peasant. He goes to a mildly successful person. He goes to very, very rich. Then a knight. Then he's down on his luck. Then he's back up on his feet, but he's in the slave trade. Then he's a bit more humble, a little less rich, and just kind of a little upset about what he'd done in the past and wants to make amends. And that's the last time Dream saw him. Then there was this whole thing with Constantine's ancestor, this other Constantine lady. Not important. But essentially, Dream ends up getting imprisoned before he sees him again. Death's like, why don't you go, meet him again? Didn't you miss your last appointment? And she's just upset that Dream is spending all his time moping around when he finally seems to have gotten a fire in his step. And he's almost moping that he got a fire and then lost it. And she's like, oh my god, it's Dream, my buddy, my brother. You gotta be better than this. We expect better from you. You're not Desire. You're not Despair. You need to be better than what you're currently doing. Come on, man. So, she's like, look, I would like to chew out more, but I have a job to do. You want to come with me? He's like, I guess. And they just start talking as they walk. And Dream notices how everyone's a little scared of her whenever she shows up. Because when Death shows up, she just kind of appears and says like, hey. And everybody's always like, yeah, hey. And they never seem to get bothered by her showing up there, you know? I was like, you know what? You look kind of familiar. Is there a reason? And they always seem to like just figure it out. Like a part of their mind instinctively knows who she is. No matter what appearance she takes, no matter where they are, they know. And they immediately go like, oh. And they all have a different reaction. They got this old guy saying, no, not yet. No. Can I just have one more moment to say a prayer? It's like, of course. She's always very considerate to them too. Like, you know, sometimes if they have enough time, she'll let them say a little prayer. But sometimes you're already dead, man. Sometimes you already bit the bucket. I was a little late. I'm apologizing. Not everyone sees their death coming, you know. The old man, you know, gets taken away, and she's just like, you know, your music was beautiful. I can't wait to see what lies for you on the other side. We can figure that out together. He's like, so what now? Well, we figure that out now. Let's go figure it out. She flies them off, and Dream, you know, stares at the memorabilia of their lives, all the life they lived. And you have the old guy who lived a very fulfilling life and became this apparently very successful musician. Then you have, you know, this guy on his honeymoon with his wife, and he apparently already drowned in the pool, and he's walking off on the shore, sees Death. It's like, wait, my phone had all our flight information. I just need to get back to my wife. It's like, I'm sorry, you're already gone. There's no time. It's like, and then he sees his body being taken out. He's like, oh gods. It's like, I'm so sorry. And she's just there for them. And while they're walking, Dream starts noticing, it's like, she's just like, how are you so chipper about all this? Like, they hate you. It's like, yeah, they're scared of death. Everyone's scared of it. And it used to be that living and dying were these new things, and people did new things just like they always approach new things with enthusiasm. Over time, they've gotten so used to the idea of life as life that they become afraid of death, of its opposite. And she goes on about how, like, you know, no mortal is as afraid. I used to think I had the worst job of all of our siblings. People fear the sunless lands where I take them, but they walk brazenly into your realm every night. They'll join desire in lusting after things. They'll let despair grip them. They'll walk freely through delirium's madness, but they'll even let destiny guide their hand. But when they see me, they recoil in fear, sob and scream and beg. And it used to get to me. Millions of years ago, before this world was even a speck, I thought about walking away, joining the prodigal, and just abandoning my realm, letting death run itself. For all the chaos that would involve, with people cheating it, the balance destroyed. And it just nearly broke me. And Dream, like, stops. Like, he suddenly realizes that his chipper sister really thought about abandoning her duty, and is like, wait, what? It's like this moment of realization that she wasn't, you know, happy in spite of her job. Her job did make her unhappy. And there's this whole moment where she says that people are afraid of her realm. It's like, and Dreams is just like, but I am far more terrible than you. Because, yeah, Dreams can do a lot of horrible things to people. They can make people do things to our world with their actions in spite of, like, in fantasies. Like, again, the belief that the murderers and the serial killers were innocent was a dream. It was a part of Dream's realm. One of his creations did that. Compared to that, death is just a natural thing. It just happens. Dreams can inspire massacres far more great than any single individual death. Which is a very interesting take. I love it. So, moving on from that, we have Dream just going about her duties. You know, she finds people in alleys, and then there's this one scene where she goes to you see this woman, and she's, you know, holding her baby, putting it in the crib, and Death and Dream walk in. She walks out of the room, and there's that moment. Like, in the comics you knew, but in this, you just like, oh, it's the fucking baby, isn't it? It's like, and it's not the baby's choking on anything, it just, you know, it just died. And Dream picks the baby up, and it's just like, I know, little one, I'm sorry. That's all the time you get. Don't cry, I'll be there for you. Let me take you somewhere new. And it's just this sad moment of an infant dying, And as Dream walks out of the building, you hear the mother behind him coming back in. She's just like so happy and chipper. She's like, okay, darling, maybe you could just like, here's your food. And then afterwards, maybe you can have a little nap so mommy can get some rest. But after that, how about we go to the park and, honey? And they don't even have her like scream or break down. It's just this sad, pathetic, like little darling. And it's just like that moment of like, you know, even though Dream didn't see it, this woman just feels like everything in the world's been taken from her. And even though Death is doing the best to be there for her child, she will likely blame Death for taking her baby from her. It's just like that moment of sadness where you realize even when Death's trying to do the best they can, humans will always blame her for things. Which is just, yeah, I'm surprised she's this happy. But she suddenly realized that she didn't have to do it alone. Unlike Dream and the others who had to run their realms without humans, humans are her realm. She guides them, and they only just need somebody to be there for them in the last moment. When humans die, they're all alone, but as long as she's there, as long as she manages her realm, not only does she ensure things work properly, and that humans aren't cheating the system, she also ensures that every human can find the Sunless Lands with a helping hand and a nice guide. She's there for everyone. Not just the young or the old. She's there for the cruel, the unjust, but those who are also kind and loving. And she gives all of them an equal chance. She treats all of them fairly. Because in the end, their actions in life are not hers to judge. She's only there to help guide them through their death. And there's this sort of comfort in that. Quite frankly, it's one of the most comforting portrayals of death I've ever seen that doesn't specifically say there's an afterlife. Now, yes, there's heaven and hell in the DC universe, yada. But even without those, even if you just stopped existing, as long as she was there to guide you there, I would feel comforted by that. That there was someone at the end to guide you to non-existence. And it's just nice. It's a very humanizing, well thought out portrayal of a personification of death that is just so wonderful. And there's this great line from her, which always gives me chills, and it's just like, I was there when the first living thing existed. I was already there. And when the last living thing dies, and the universe ends, I will turn out the lights and lock the door as I close the universe behind me. Or let me look up the exact quote actually, 1 second. Here's the full quote, I just got it up. I had it up for when I was doing a lot of the stuff earlier. I'm not merciful or blessed. I'm just me. I've got a job to do, and I do it. When the first living thing existed, I was there, waiting. When the last living thing dies, my job will be finished. I'll put the chairs on the table, turn out the lights, and lock the universe behind me when I leave. Every time I hear that or say that those lines just give me goosebumps because it portrays a sort of inevitability to things. It both terrifies and thrills me on a deeper level than I ever experienced. That's one of the reasons I like Sandman, is because they just have these moments, they make me feel something. And personally, I am apathetic to a lot of the world. It just gets tiring, personally. And I just like, that might be why I like Dream as a character, because he feels really tired of a lot of shit at the beginning. But, I don't know, when I seek out media, I seek it out to feel something, to feel these emotions. And when I hear Death talking about the beginning to the end, it's all just waiting for her. But she's not being cruel about it. She says it herself, she's not merciful or blessed. She's just herself. She's just Death. And I've always again, I've tried doing some writing and I've done some personifications of ideas like, remembered afterlives and stuff like that. And it's just, I've even done my own personification of Death, who is just tired of making people trying to make bargains with them and a little annoying. It's look, this is how it works. But this version of Death is just so well written. I just feel like my version is almost inferior. Even though it's a completely different take. Which is, it's wonderful. Everyone was wonderful. So, personally, I think it's just fantastic. It is great. It's wonderful. This scene really shows just how amazing this series is. And I am beyond excited to see a second season. I was not joking. Netflix, if you cancel this, I will figure out who is responsible and I will come for them. Because quite frankly, this series must go on. You have a really good cast for this. You have excellent writers and directors who clearly understand the source material, and quite frankly, this is one of the best comics of all time. And I just need to have more of this. It's Neil Gaiman at some of his best, and I need that. Because Neil Gaiman is one of those amazing writers that clearly needs to be doing more stuff. I know he has standards, but come on, Neil Gaiman, give us more. More, please. More, please. Sorry. I'm getting a little off topic. Oh, God, so I'm already at the 40-minute mark, so I might as well start wrapping things up. So, that's basically my thing. This is a clear 10 out of 10 for me. Go watch this. Go watch this so hard. Watch this multiple times. Give Netflix those engagement metrics that they need to know. This is a subscriber maker. This is what gets people to keep their subscription to Netflix. Netflix, you gotta have quality. And this is quality. Whoo, baby. So, yeah. Moving on from that, announcements. Okay, everybody. Well, we have 2 major announcements. The next 2 reviews will be Madison, a new horror video game that I have some mixed thoughts on. And then after that, I will be reviewing Top Gun Maverick because, look, it's the highest grossing movie of the year. My dad kind of likes the Maverick, Top Gun movie. I was like, oh, I can go see it with him. And it was, a fun movie. It was fun enough, but it's just not my thing. But I mean, I'm going to review it because, I've done these things. So yeah,